I'm Jeanette Peterson, writer and mindfulness coach. Welcome to the Art of Mindful Disruption, where I share conversations to help relax, motivate, ponder, and inspire you to grow. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this mindfulness meander with me as I traverse some topics that might just make you think differently about pretty much everything in life. Over time, I will challenge your ways of thinking and potentially even your emotions in ways that you may have never considered before. You see, mindful disruption is not about chasing solutions. It's more about building awareness and allowing the solutions to find you. So let's take some long, slow, deep breaths together just to center our attention, calm our nervous system so that we can be fully present. Because we know that being present in the here and now is the best place to begin. So I just want you to take those long, slow, deep breaths, feeling them right into your belly, all the way down, really deep and long, breathing in. Feeling that air as it enters through your nose and breathing out. Feeling the air as it leaves your body. Just two more long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in. Feeling the benefit of the air as it goes deep into your body, and as you breathe out through your nose, just allow the tension to disappear so that you can relax and be present. One more, breathing in, long and slow. Feeling the air as it fills up your body, and as you breathe out, allow any residual tension to leave your body. So now hopefully you're feeling a little bit more relaxed and present. And so let's jump into the conversation for today. It's an interesting one, and it's one that's on the lips of many parents now, and even teenagers alike, is in the technology era. Do our children still crave connection? So connection, human connection, is the connection that I mean. I guess what the question really is our technology providing us with the connection that we crave so deeply inside? Have we used technology to expand our abilities and the things that we can do in life? Or has technology become our crutch for connection? And is it fulfilling the requirements that we crave in that human connection? Has it become not so human? And has it become unrealistic? These are all many of the questions that I get asked, and I imagine many of us are asking ourselves all the time as our children become deeply embedded in this technology-driven era that feels like it's almost on hyperspeed as it grows and grows. You see, in a way that we were never affected, and yes, I'm showing my age, but children are bombarded constantly with a never-ending stream of content. And for many children, this is a lot to take in because there are simply no stopping points. And these stopping points are incredibly important in life. Now, before technology, and I'm not saying that before technology was good, but there are some elements that did exist before that potentially maybe we've lost, and maybe they were good and they would be worthwhile for us to carry forward with this amazing, wonderful technology that's leading us on the cutting edge of growth and taking us into spaces that we'd never been before. So what did these stopping points look like? Well, if you compare my childhood to the average childhood now, I read books, so mine were paper versions of books. Now, there are some children's books that are obviously still available in the printed format, but in the technology-driven era that we're supercharging and that we're racing towards at an incredible fast pace, is to have all these electronically. Now, for us, you had the end of a chapter, you closed the book, your parents called you for dinner, or there was something else to do, you put your book down and you came back to it later. Now, relate that to technology and the way it's sitting now, and the average social media channel. Those stopping points just don't exist. You can watch Netflix on a non-stop loop. It just brings episode after episode. Now, many years ago, you would wait an entire week before the next episode would come on TV. So there was these big long pauses between gaining the information, absorbing it, and then gaining the next piece of information. So in a way, our children are being forced to absorb high volumes of information in short spaces of time with no gaps and no spaces to take that in. Now, there's lots of arguments that can be said around whether this is good or whether this is bad, but a lot of the science and the big conversations that are being had out in the world is that we don't really know yet what the implications are going to be for our children that have grown up exclusively in this space. So this lack of stopping points can create a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety in children's lives because they become tired and fatigued. I mean, children very young are absorbing high levels of social media, and they're still growing, they're still developing as human beings. So they're learning still some of the most basic functions that will carry them right through life. And while they're trying to learn that, and they're gaining concrete pathways, neurological pathways in their brain for the functions that they're going to have in life, and still absorbing all this content, we have to sit back and say, this is a lot of expectation we're putting on them. So potentially it's having a problem on children's self-esteem and their ability to remain positive, because unfortunately a lot of the messages that are delivered in social media, many of them are very positive and very nice and very uplifting, but a lot of them are very judgmental and create compartmentalization. So we put people into boxes. So we create these spaces of, is she prettier than I am? Is she slimmer than I am? Is he smarter than I am? There's so many different boxes that children are being pressured into and squeezed into. So it's almost like the peer pressure that children would have suffered, say, 20 years ago in their small circle of people is quite significantly different than potentially the level of peer pressure that can be applied from an international group of peers. So we're talking a completely different space here, and we're talking about completely different things. So it's not just that in a different era, children are experiencing different things before, and it's not the argument of, oh, when I was young things were different. That's not relevant either, but it's about understanding potentially what are some of these impacts and how can you rein it in and yet still be part of that beautiful participative process around the benefits and the value that technology brings us into this space. And it is possible to improve and foster some amazing skills in connection. So children really need our support more than ever through good leadership. I bet as a parent, one often doesn't think about leadership as being something that kind of occurs at home too much. You're probably thinking that it's a work kind of thing, right? But in actual fact, leadership is just as important in the home environment as it is at work. we're in a prime opportunity in life when we're parents, or even an adult around young children, is to provide a role model. Now, if you're wanting your children to interact and engage and learn those social interaction skills just as much as you want them to learn to be able to survive in the technology era, well, we kind of need to lead by example, right? So if we're taking our kids out and expecting them to play in the park, and yet we're barely lifting up from our phone embedded in social media, how do we expect them to build those skills if we're not replicating those skills ourselves? So the first point of reference is to look back and see, okay, have I lost some of these skills for myself? And by me losing some of these skills, am I actually transferring some of that onto my children? And then is this being exacerbated by them being so ingrained in this technology space that they're not developing some skills as well? So is this kind of the double edge of a sword? It's both a learning problem and a social and cultural conditioning problem as well. So what do we do? How do we cope with the technology era that is rushing at us like a freight train moving at high speed? It's grabbing us through screen addiction and often making us completely unable to switch off. From everything negative, there is equally always benefit. So what do we do? There are now 2 generations completely engrossed in technology, from school to home and play, because it is literally in everything we seem to do. We are still yet to understand these effects, but we can lean in closer and begin to have conversations to understand what role we can play in creating technology as a great space for our children to grow up, and in fact for us to maintain our life, but yet still maintain the beautiful qualities of connections that make us human. So in our amazing technology-driven era, we can seek those answers to absolutely anything that we want, because this information now is completely available at our fingertips, giving us unprecedented access to knowledge. Now, if used well, it could transform our society and the world we live in for the better, right? The question to ask yourself is, are your children using technology to learn and grow, or are they using it to numb themselves with mindless, unhelpful rubbish? Now, that's not to say that everything that's available to them is that, but understanding what your children are accessing and potentially what you're accessing in front of your children might help you to understand a little bit closer to whether it is the first, learn and grow, or the latter, numbing. Now, the word numbing is an interesting word to use in this space. And I don't use it lightly, but we're doing a lot of numbing. And as I sit in amongst COVID and all the roll-on effects that seem to continue in this new world that we're living in, that unfortunately I see numbing all around me. I see people escaping from the world because they're not satisfied with the world that they live in, that they're frustrated, irritated, annoyed, and confused. Now, a lot of the information that comes at us tends to cause this and exacerbate this, but we have a lot more control over what we see than what we think we do. We can switch off from these things. We can switch off from social media, we can switch off from TV, and we can pick and choose the things that we want to watch. If we pick the things that help us to grow and expand, we potentially could be making better choices. But if we're constantly feeling a desire to be numbed, then this is a question that, as humanity, we need to ask ourselves. Do we want to walk through life feeling numb? I personally would prefer to experience life and all the beauty and all the things that unfold. In fact, right amongst COVID and everything that's going on in the world, there still is beauty. There still is amazing things that exist. Right from the tiniest little thing to some of the most significant things that happen in life. And they're occurring all around us. But if we're busy numbing ourselves from the pain and the suffering that seems to be delivered to us en masse in social media, on the TV, and the sad and unhappy news that seems to arrive at our doorstep continually, well, then we miss all these other things. So the key dilemma with growing up and continuing to grow as humanity through a technology era, well, it's the same as everything else in life. It requires some balance. So where is the balance for you? Do you feel it's balanced? Do you feel that it's completely out of balance and you don't begin to know how to peg it back? Well, there are ways that we can pull this back. There are ways that we can find balance between watching the news and being aware about what's going on in the world, but maintaining some peace and happiness within our life at the same time. There are ways that we can interact internationally in social media and grow and learn by all the diverse experiences that we get to be exposed to, because the world feels so much smaller because we're so much more connected. Yet we still need that localized connection, that human interaction, that hug, that hello, that consideration from a friend or a family member. As humans, we crave these things, and no matter how much technology gives us, it never completely will fulfill those requirements. So if we don't practice these skills and we don't maintain them in our own lives and help pass them on to the generations that are ahead of us, well, I'm sad to say, but we could be in for a rocky ride, because in the end, we're humans, and human connection is something that we crave. Love is something that we crave. We can see it in the world all the time, that people are seeking and searching for love in so many ways. And in fact, social media is a prime space for that searching and seeking of love. So if we can get it at home and we can get it in those localized, closer spaces, well then maybe, just maybe, when we're seeking social media, we might use it more for entertaining, or more as a softer way, or a way of learning something new, instead of putting all our focus on the rewards and the benefits and the likes and the appreciation that comes from those mediums. So in the short term, we know that it's not that far ahead of us that cars are going to be driving themselves. So we're going to have a whole lot more time on our hands, because we're not even going to need to drive anymore. Soon enough, we'll have no contact with anyone in a supermarket. It's already starting to happen. There are already stores that are integrating this in parts of the world. So you'll go through a turnstile, you'll swipe in, and everything you pick off the shelf and put into your physical basket will go into your electronic basket. And as you leave the store, those goods will be charged to your credit card. This isn't space age. This isn't advanced. This is already happening. And this is the way of the future in those spaces. I mean, you don't have to look too far back to look into our supermarkets and see how drastically our supermarkets changed. We went from going through a checkout within the last 10 years to having somebody pack, having a separate person to pack, have a separate person to process your items. Now, the biggest part in supermarkets where I live, and I guarantee it's probably the same in many parts of the world at least, is that the biggest part of the supermarket exit is you pack and process your own. So I know that there's frustration in that space because people feel like jobs have been lost. But it's not the only thing that we've lost. There are people that go to supermarkets and the only interaction they have that week could very well have been the person who served them at the checkout. So where are their interactions now? What happens if that's an elderly person and it was their only outing for the week and they used to look forward to talking to the lovely, smiling, happy person at the checkout as they bought their items in the supermarket? What will happen to those people? Who will speak to them? Now, this technology is simplifying and making things easier and streamlining, but it's also helping us to lose some interactions. Now, if you're younger, you might think, not even think about that because it may not have come up for you. But there are some people in the world where those interactions are few and far between, and they may be the only interactions people have. So what do these images conjure up for you? What about the human interactions that bring us joy? Will we miss them? I'm sure we will. Many of us seem to be missing them already, and that's children included. But will we only realise that we miss them when they're completely gone? There's still time for us to retrieve those things, but in a way that potentially supports the interactions. So if we're not trying to peg back technology and stop technology from advancing us, what we're trying to do is stay human, to make sure that our only interactions that we were getting were in the spaces where technology is now taking care of us. So to make sure that everyone, whether you are elderly or whether you're a parent or whether you're a child, gets enough human interaction regardless of the technology that you have in your life. Now, for children, through COVID and the lockdowns, children have had to endure sometimes weeks and even months of homeschooling away from their friends and the education system that they knew. Now, for children, the interactions that they needed that were critical in bringing the joy and the happiness in their life, they were getting with their friends in the time that they were at school. And I'm sure many people listening to this will be parents and will have had children that suffered through the lack of those interactions. They missed their friends. Do your children miss the technology from school? Probably not. But I guarantee that they miss the human interaction and the connection with their friends. Now, this is interesting because this means that something's gone awry. Something is out of whack, and we need to resolve it, and we need to resolve it sooner than later. So the lesson of COVID could very well be a pointer to help us understand that we need to stay human regardless of technology, that maybe we were missing the interactions that we were having as humans more than we realized, that we were thinking that the technology was covering it, but that's because we were just getting all this interaction that maybe we took for granted. And when suddenly we couldn't have that interaction anymore, that we realized something was missing, and that technology and being stuck at home and having to try to get all of that interaction electronically really wasn't working for us at all. So what do I mean when I'm talking about human interaction? Well, I'm talking about soft skills, those skills that we're taught through engaging with others, through listening, through understanding, through acceptance, all these skills that are essential for us to engage person to person. We all long for that connection, and it simply can't be achieved through technology. So what do we need to do? We need to take time with our children to foster connection, along with the soft skills that are required to maintain it, despite the growth of technology. If we don't, one day we will suddenly realise that we lost the most vital human ability that exists within us all, human connection. And I sincerely hope that this day never comes. So there are many things that we can do as individuals, parents, friends, grandparents, aunts, uncles, to promote and foster this human interaction. Create space for it in our lives and make it an important part of our future moving forward. When we become more connected as individuals, we become more compassionate, we become more understanding, we become more aware of ourselves because we're seeing the reflections of our own habits and potentially the things that we need to learn about ourselves. If we don't get to see them in others, we can often miss those soft skill developments that we need to go through and understand and grow as an individual. So make space. Make space in your life for human interactions. Turn off your phone. Turn down notifications. Turn them off where you can. Sometimes go out with your family and walk and leave your phone at home. Don't always have it on you. Utilize technology and all the things that exist in the technology advances that we have. Use them to your benefit, but don't allow yourself to be used by them. I think it's an important point to consider. So set rules in your house collectively. Don't enforce them as a parent, but create space around them and teach your children to do the same. Lead by example. So if you want your children to spend less time in social media, do the same. And take those moments and take that time to engage as a human and engage that human connection with all the amazing people around you. Get into nature, even in lockdown. In places like where I live, we can get out and we can walk and be in nature. So if you're all going out together and someone's concerned that you need a phone in case of an emergency, we'll just designate one person to take their phone. So then you have one in case something happened. But then go out and just enjoy that space. Enjoy the water, enjoy the birds, enjoy nature, enjoy the sun, enjoy whatever's around you. You might be pleasantly surprised at what you see out in the world that you missed because you had your head down in a phone, or you were more concerned about taking a photograph of it than you were about enjoying it. Technology is a great advance for us, but equally are the amazing soft skills of human connection. So as we move forward collectively in this world, let's bring them both forward together. It's not a requirement of one or the other. It's simply about finding balance and creating harmony in life so we can achieve this together. We are humans after all, so our collective humanity is potentially what has brought us technology in the first place. Our ability to grow and expand and discover new frontiers where technology is taking us is part of the human growth. So let's not abandon what got us here in the first place. Let's take it forward and make the world great with technology and humanity side by side. I hope today that you've enjoyed this mindfulness meander with me. And as you progress forward through life, you consider your human connection alongside your connection with technology. If you'd like to know more about mindfulness and how it can help you in your life, this meander that you're listening to is on the YouTube channel, The Art of Mindful Disruption. I also have a blog of the same name, so if you're a reader, you can read The Art of Mindful Disruption. It's quite easy to find. And I look forward to the next time if you'd like to join me again and we can work our way through mindfulness and the beautiful journey that it can take us all on life together, one topic at a time. Thanks for joining me.